our midst. O God, grant us the vision of our country, fair as it might be, country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, correction of votes and proceedings. Shall commence the correction of the votes and proceedings of the 29th sitting, the third meeting held on Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9. Yes, Member Fukwarasu.
Honorable Speaker, page 9, item 7. This is a minor issue, Mr. Damboche. If you can write the full name, Daniel Boche. Daniel Boche. Daniel Boche instead of Dan Boche.
Page. Is that page 9, item 1?
Page 9, item 7.
Is there any item 7 on my page 9?
Sorry?
There's no item on my page 9.
Really? Where you have the following questions were asked of and answered by the Honorable Minister responsible for local government, decentralization and rural development, Mr. Damboche. And I said we should write the full name, Daniel Boche.
Hold on. What other paper before? Sorry, the votes and proceedings before me is that of Monday, 13th. I think that explains where am I? Yes, item 7, rural development by Mr. Dan Boche. Yes. And what is your complaint about that?
Now, if you look under the attendance, it's Daniel Boche. But this is Dan, so I'm saying that we should write the Daniel. He is Daniel Boche.
Very well. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Yes, Leader.
Mr. Speaker, understandably, the table probably have not captured it because that is not our practice. But yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I drew your attention to the budget for Parliament and that of the judiciary, that pursuant to Article 1793, in respect of the judiciary, it is a requirement, legal and constitutional, that the President, as Executive President, responds to their budget estimates as presented to him. And therefore, in laying the estimates, we are not just interested in the estimates laid here, but the accompanying correspondence from the President must also be added on. Mr. Speaker, I heard you direct table on that matter, even though it is not captured for a record. for the budget estimates for Parliament and for the judiciary, it always must be accompanied by that official, formal communication from the President responding to what has been so forwarded to him, so that we know what members have been agreed upon. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The table office will take note to make sure that the committees are finished with the President's comments if they have not done so. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. Yes, Honourable Member for Kwadaso.
Honourable Speaker, page 17, under item 3 in attendance, Roman numeral XIX, Mr. Michael I'm not sure of this name, so if they could check. SAKPONH. I'm not sure whether it is the right surname. I don't know, because this name is not familiar. That's why I'm asking that question. I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
The table office will verify.
That's my point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let them verify.
Page 18. 19. Page 20. 21. Page 22. Page 23. Page 20. Yes, Honourable Member for Kwadaso.
Peter, this one I know. Yes. Roman numeral XSIB, Mr. E.O. Osai. He's the Director General for Internal Audit Agency. I see, Coastal Development Authority. I think you have to cancel the Coastal Development Authority. Thank you. Yeah.
Very well. The table office will confer with the committee and make the appropriate corrections. Page 24. Page 25. Yes. Honourable Member for Kwadaso.
Honourable Speaker, page 24, Roman numeral XXXIV, Napagatia Suleimana is not a Mr. Napagatia Suleimana. It's a
Part of it, yes.
I know Napagatia is a female. She's a female, I know her. But what I don't know is whether she is a Mrs. or a Miss. So we have to check. It's not Mr. Napagatia.
Very well.
Thank you.
'25. Page 26. Page 27. Page 28. Honourable members, subject to the corrections made, the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, December 14th, is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. We have one very short official report. The official report of Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. Any corrections? Any corrections? In the absence of any corrections, the official report of Thursday, December 2nd, 2021 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. Yes, Honorable Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have to indulge you. As you are aware, I probably, but because you are in the chair, you may not be able to join the Parliamentary Service Board meeting, which should be ongoing. But Mr. Speaker, I have to indulge you, as I said, and seek your leave. We have to go back to the votes and proceedings of Friday, 10th December 2021. And I'm invoking Order 72, Mr. Speaker, to seek your leave for the Minister for Energy probably to consider coming back to this House to withdraw an LI which was laid pursuant to Article 11 of the 1992 Constitution, which LI is Petroleum Local Content and Local Participation Amendment Regulations 2021. Mr. Speaker, rightfully and justifiably, you refer the matter to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. That is appropriate. But Mr. Speaker, since the 21 days cannot count until we go on recess and come back, it is my prayer that the Minister for Energy withdraws the LI, engages Subsidiary Legislation Committee at pre-laying stage, together with the stakeholders in the industry, in order to preserve the investment climate of our country as a safe haven for the attraction of foreign direct investment, so that when that consultation is done, the minister can so come back to lay it. But Mr. Speaker, I will bring some formal correspondence probably on Tuesday from one or two of the major stakeholders to support the position and the application I'm making, Mr. Speaker, so that it is withdrawn, so that during the holidays, the Committee on Subsidiary Legislation can engage further with all the industry stakeholders, both upstream and downstream in the petroleum industry, because we need to preserve our investment climate and we need to preserve and protect foreign direct investment in our country within the downstream and upstream of the industry. I pray, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes.
Speaker, the minority leader engaged me on this, and ordinarily I shouldn't have any objection, and in principle I don't have any objection to this. But it's also, and the minority leader will concede, that we should have something laid as a locus or the reason for the paper to be withdrawn or to be relayed or pave way for further engagement. So we shouldn't jump the gun. I would want us to get that. I have no doubt, I have confidence in what he's saying, but let's get that on record, and then it could be withdrawn for further engagement with all the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders, the pave way for the relaying to be done. So I support him, except to say that we must have evidence of some complaint, for want of a better expression, from the stakeholders before we can withdraw it.
Yes. I think we should just wait for whatever complaint they have to be brought, so that the minister may be engaged to do what he requested. We'll proceed. Item number 5, urgent question. The urgent question is to be answered by the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Welfare. If the minister may take her seat now. Yes, Leader.
Speaker, I've engaged my colleagues and will hence seek your leave to vary the order of business and go on on to item 7 and take item 8.
You mean item 8?
Yes, we
Item
should take item 8 instead. 8C on page 6. With your leave, Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Head. Right. Yes, Honorable afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, your question, the urgent question you wanted me to ask this morning, Mr. Speaker, has been hanging for over 2 months now. I don't know if a reason can be given why this question cannot be answered. Thank you.
The question will be answered. It's only the order of business that is being changed. Instead of doing the question now, we will do something else and come back to the question. I can see the minister is here waiting with her answer. Yes. Item 8C. Presentation of purpose by the chairman of the committee. Yes.
Report of the Committee on Roads and Transport on the commercial contract agreement between the Government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Railways Development through the Ghana Railway Authority and Messrs. Afcon Infrastructure Limited, for an amount of €361,231,965 for the construction of sections of the Western Railway line on standard gauge from Eduadin to Obuasi.
The paper is duly presented. It's referred to the committee on. Oh, the report. Yes, the report is duly presented for distribution to members. Yes, Leader.
Speaker, may we now go on to item 10 on page 10. Item 10, page 10. With your leave, Speaker.
Yes. Item 10, motion by the Minister for Transport. Yes, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to plead that you allow my Deputy Minister to speak on my behalf because I'm not free to talk.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister for Transport.
Therefore, Mr. Speaker,
Hold on, let me listen to the Chief Whip. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, ministers are supposed to move their motions. And the minister, if you were not here, with the greater respect, who would have insisted that you should be fetched. So you cannot be sitting here and ask the deputy to move the motion for the approval of your ministry's budget. I have great confidence in my colleague, the deputy minister, to do their best. Please, Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of the minister should do that himself. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, why did you want your deputy to move it?
Mr. Speaker, I think that the deputy, the minority chief whip will attest to the fact that I had always responded to the duty of this house. And I don't think that I will ever create an impression or decide that I will not speak in the house. But Mr. Speaker, but the fact of the matter is that I'm not well, I've lost my voice, and that is what I want my. But it doesn't matter. But when the argument starts, maybe I will not be able to speak. So, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm not trying to run away from my responsibilities. And I think that the minority chief whip will attest to the fact. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the minister is not true, I will not insist that he should do that and collapse in the chamber. So, but this information has not been furnished us. So we were not aware. So we couldn't have assumed the reason why he's asking his deputy to do that. If that's the reason, we accept that the deputy can do that on his ground.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Very grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, respectfully, I move that this House approves the sum of 921,843,000 Ghana cedis to execute the programs and projects of the Ministry of Transport and its subvented agencies for the 2022 fiscal year. Speaker, the breakdown is as follows. Compensation 70,298,000, goods and services 157,184,000, and assets 694,361,000. Mr. Speaker, the focus of the Ministry's 2022 budget is to implement key interventions and projects in the following areas: development of the Keta Seaport project, and to also continue with the construction of coastal fish landing sites and community-level infrastructure at Axim, Dixkov, Ofanseman, Ekonfi, Mori, Manford, Winneba, Senya Breku, Gomoafete, Teshi, Osu, and Keta. The Speaker, to also continue with the construction of the Jamestown Fishing Port and the Elmina Fish Port Rehabilitation and Expansion projects. Additionally, we'll be constructing the Buankra Integrated Logistics Terminal project and also Takrady Container and Multipurpose Terminal. Mr. Speaker, we would also complete works on rehabilitation and expansion of the Kumasi and Tamale airports, construction of a new airport in the Western, Central, or in between the two regions, road safety education and awareness programs, that Stay Alive campaign, review of the Road Traffic Act 2004 Act 683 and Road Traffic Regulations 2012 LI 2180 to address implementation challenges and to take on board new and emerging practices in the road transport industry. Mr. Speaker, we also intend to expand DVLA services to newly created regions and digitization of vehicle records, procurement of buses for the Metro Mass Transit Limited and other private sector operators to improve transportation services. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House approves the Ministry's budget estimates of 921,843,000 Ghana cedis for the 2022 fiscal year. I move accordingly, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Ranking Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion ably moved by my colleague. And doing so, with your leave, I would like to present the committee, your committee's report. But with time constraint, I would like to limit my contribution to the observations and conclusions of your committee. Mr. Speaker, your committee met the Ministry of Transport on Wednesday, the 8th of December, to consider their estimate for year 2022. Mr. Speaker, during the meeting, your committee made some key observations. And, Mr. Speaker, if we turn to paragraph 8.0, Mr. Speaker, the committee took cognizance of the fact that the ministry, since 2019, has seen an increase in its annual budgetary allocation. The ministry was allocated an amount of 287,330,480.47 pesos. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the ministry, in 2020, the ministry was allocated 657,839,197 in 2020, respectively. The committee noted that a total sum of 921,843,000 had been allocated for the ministry for 2022 financial year. Mr. Speaker, this is an increase of 40.13%. Mr. Speaker, if you move to paragraph 8.2, the committee observed with concern that the arbitrary fees charged by shipping lines, which significantly increase the import cost of importers and ultimately source up cost of imported commodities. The committee was informed that there are inadequate laws to deal with the current situation, thus giving shipping lines the freedom to charge arbitrary fees. The committee recommends to the Minister for Transport to constitute a committee comprising the Ministry of Transport, Ghana Shippers Authority, and all other stakeholders to review the shipping laws of the country and come up with recommendations that will address the problem. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the committee, after examining the 2022 annual estimate of the Ministry of Transport and having regard to the important role of the sector in the development agenda of the country, recommend to the House to approve the sum of 921,843,000 to enable the Ministry of Transport to implement its programs and activities for the 2022 fiscal year. I shall move. Thank you.
Yeah, Senator Ranking Member.
Right, Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the motion moved by our colleague, the Deputy Minister, and seconded by my chairman. Mr. Speaker, a close look at the estimate will suggest that this ministry is largely run on donor funds. Mr. Speaker, if you look at table 1, the GOG component of goods and services, they could only get 11%. In the case of CAPEX, they got 0. Mr. Speaker, then if you come to 2022, you see government attempting to basically almost double the allocation to the ministry. Nigerians will call it Udio money. In effect, they mention the money, but the ministries never get the money to do anything. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm not even sure whether sometimes when we make these allocations and talk about it, whether it's even in the interest of the ministry. Mr. Speaker, with the specific issue about some of the maritime service programs, Mr. Speaker, I am still not convinced that it is prudent as a country when the minister appointed a director for Keta Port. Mr. Speaker, it's just like appointing a regional minister before they create new regions. There's absolutely no reason. In fact, I believe that the bulk of what we are doing at Keta towards the construction of the port is being done by the engineers currently and the consultant at the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. I would encourage the minister to liquidate the position of the director of Keta Port. It's a drain on the country. It's not necessary, and we can do something better with that money. So I encourage the minister to liquidate that position and use the money for something else. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the road safety, Mr. Speaker, we are in a season where we all need to take care when we are driving. In this House, including yourself, Mr. Speaker, we changed the law for the National Road Safety Commission to an authority. The hope was that we were going to give them the necessary tools for them to reach every district so that the education and everything would go on. As we speak, the regulations are not here. Their presence in the district are not even available. So, Mr. Speaker, this budget must be able to address that. Mr. Speaker, with regards to aviation, I must say that I am happy that both the WA and the Ho airports have finally been activated. Now you can take a flight to Ho and WA, which is a good thing. The rest of the project, Kumasi and Tamale, are also progressing steadily. even, how do you call it, the ones that are completed are also in this. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, there's not much joy in this allocation to the Ministry of Transport. Like I said, it's the repeat of the same thing. A fraction of that money will be given to them. But for me, significantly, I am happy that the aviation unit of this has worked well. But I am saying that the minister can do better by liquidating the position of the director of Interport. It's not necessary, and we can save money by if we liquidate that. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, Honorable Dr. Murphy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion to approve the indicated amount for the services of the Ministry of Transport for the year 2022. Mr. Speaker, in supporting the motion, I am excited that the committee was able to perform the duties for which the budget that is indicated in paragraph 50 was assigned to the ministry. Mr. Speaker, I am particularly excited about the progress that we observe in the transport sector, particularly the fact that there is a financial closure to the Buankra Inland Port. I believe that the people in the north and in the middle part of the country, in particular Kumasi, will be very excited because this is a project that we'll be waiting for quite some time now. And so we are happy that there is a financial closure to that deal, and that hopefully we are able to start implementing the project in full. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to conclude that the programs in the area of the aviation sector and the Road Safety Act amendment that has been planned and the supply of new buses are all interventions that will very much help the transport sector. Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable James.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion as discussed. In talking about the Transport Ministry, as has already been indicated in the report, this ministry has been so fortunate and the government has been consistent in releasing the requested amount for performance in the ministry. And so, in commenting on their performance, I'm happy to also commend the ministry for its performance in opening up the WA and the whole airport. And the prayer is that it should not be a one-day wonder.
All members, order.
To sustain it.
There's too much noise in the room, please.
To sustain the commercial flights to Ho and Wa and make sure that it is viable. And by getting it viable, the ministry should do whatever it is to ensure that private investors or other investors are encouraged to support that the WA and the whole airport be viable. Mr. Speaker, much has been said about the ministry, but of concern is also the arbitrary charges, as has already been said or read by the chairman, arbitrary charges by ship airlines. These have contributed to cost of most of the products that are being imported to this country. And therefore, if efforts are made by the ministry to ensure the appropriate laws are made to control this situation, that will be most appreciated. Mr. Speaker, the ministry consistently has been given the appropriate resources, and as already mentioned in the report, there isn't so much to say about it, but just to support that the minister's request and the requested or the released budget or the allocated budget be supported going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
At the conclusion of the debate, the question is all in favor of the motion, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it, the motion is carried. Yes,
Speaker, I guess we can now go on to item 12 on page 11. Item 12 on page 11.
Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there was an application to do just that motion. Mr. Speaker, I will be grateful if we could go back to questions so that members can ask their questions. Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Chigwe.
Speaker, I'm in total agreement with my colleague, so we can now revert to questions.
Yes, Honorable Minister, you may take your seat now. Honorable Member from MP West, you may ask your question now. Honorable Member from MP West, you may ask your urgent question now. Honorable Member, kindly ask your question. Honorable, should I move on to another person?
Thank you.
I'll move on to question number 253.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for the opportunity to ask the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. What steps have been taken by the Ministry to remove the children who are on the high streets of Accra and other regional capitals, hawking and begging, as these activities cause injuries, traffic congestion, and accidents to road users? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister. Yes, Honorable Minister, kindly hold on. Yes, leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the question is to the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. Mr. Speaker, this House has no official correspondence that the Minister for Sanitation is temporarily holding there. So I thought that it is only proper for our records for the leadership to draw attention that she's doing this as a holding minister for the Gender Ministry, because we do not have that official communication. So for her to just move in will be ambushing us. So we'll be grateful if we are told why the Sanitation Minister...
He has actually appeared to answer questions in that ministry. This is the second time. And so that information has been on our record earlier. Earlier, she had come to answer the questions. I think that was last week. Honorable Minister, is that right? Last week. So our record is, we have record that she's the minister.
That was for last week. As you may know, her occupation or a temporary occupation of that office is not a permanent one. So that was for last week. We may not know whether she's still acting, because, like you know, the president hasn't written to this house telling us that between this period and that period, she'll be holding the fund. So it is only proper that we are reminded that she's the one to keep the office running. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yes,
Speaker. Speaker, you were spot on when you rightly observed that the minister a couple of times has been in the House to answer questions related to the Ministry for Children and Social Protection. But that notwithstanding, Speaker, let me, for the records, seek your leave for the Minister for Sanitation, Water Resource and Sanitation to answer the question on and for behalf of the Minister for Children and Social Protection. With your leave, Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have no objection.
Yes, Honorable Minister, you may now answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry has put in place plans and strategies to address the problem of the children who are begging and hawking on the streets of Accra and other regional capitals. Mr. Speaker, 275 street children have already been rescued. 57 are reunited with their families, and 12 have been enrolled in schools and vocational training. Rescued children are sent to our children's shelter where they are screened, rehabilitated, and reintegrated with their families. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry is carrying out Operation Get Off the Streets and Live a Better Life, and it is being led by the Honorable Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, who is also doubling as the caretaker minister for gender, children, and social protection. The main objective of this operation is to engage the street-connected people, sensitize them on child protection laws of Ghana, including other laws that prohibit begging, such as the Destitute and Beggars Decree of 1969, and then also sensitize them on dangers of hawking on our streets. We advise them to look for jobs to do, send their children to school, and leave the streets completely. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry has also introduced fostering program which places vulnerable children, including children on the streets, with foster parents. So far, 245 children have been placed with foster parents who have been trained, certified, and registered. We have trained a total of 904 foster parents so far for possible placements. Mr. Speaker, reunification, reintegration, and rehabilitation of children on the streets who are Ghanaians is also ongoing. Other interventions include the district level approach, which is tackling the problem at the district levels. This has been found to be an effective strategy considering Section 16 of the Children's Act of 1998. This provision states that the district assemblies are responsible for the protection of children who live within their jurisdiction. Mr. Speaker, we shall continue to engage and collaborate with the MMDAs so that district assemblies will take up this responsibility of rescuing children and other vulnerable persons found in street situations in their jurisdiction. This, we believe, will help tackle the issue of streetism holistically. Mr. Speaker, it is in view of this that the Integrated Social Service Program, a new initiative, is being piloted in 100 districts in collaboration with the Office of the Head of Local Government Service. The ISS program serves as a vehicle to bring all relevant stakeholders together to deal with the issues of children and families found to be at risk of all forms of vulnerabilities. Through this program, district and integrated social service teams, led by the Department of Social Welfare, have initiated activities to address these challenges of children and families in street situations. Mr. Speaker, all the above are being done within the framework of the National Child and Family Welfare Policy. to guide the actions of child protection actors in the formal and informal sectors, and to ensure effective and efficient coordination amongst stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, furthermore, a strategic document on street-connected children is currently being developed. Stakeholder consultation on street-connected people was held on 28 October 2021 in Accra, with input from broad stakeholders. This will be followed by other activities to firm up the plan and seek stakeholders' commitment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, may I ask your follow-up question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the Minister for her answer to the question. But I also like to know from the Minister if she's aware that these children under consideration, most of them are foreigners with their parents in Ghana, mostly from Chad, Niger, Mali, Somalia, and others. If so, what program is the ministry designing with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration to perpetuate their stay in the country or otherwise? Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Speaker, indeed, we've had a data collection made, and we have 66,000 people living on the streets. We are engaging them as I speak. We sent sections of the officers, and I led a section to go to 3 hotspots. What we have gathered, Mr. Speaker, is that of all the places we went to, all of them were from Niger. So we've started drafting letters through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the Niger Embassy to negotiate with them for their evacuation. They did indeed tell us that they are willing to go back. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. That's okay for now. Thank you.
Very well. We'll move on to question number 253. In the name of the Honourable Member for Klote-Kole, Dr. Zenato Ejima Roberts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection what steps the ministry is taking to address the increasing numbers of women, children and persons with disability now begging on our ceremonial streets.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection held a stakeholders meeting on street-connected people to identify stakeholders and share responsibilities within the collaborative framework. The ministry is currently developing a strategic plan to guide implementation of the Operation Get Off the Streets and Live a Better Life. The ministry is also collaborating with the MMDAs to enforce the Children's Act 560 of 1998. Meanwhile, because of the urgent nature of the phenomenon, the ministry has started carrying out Operation Get Off the Streets and Live a Better Life, and it is being led by the Honourable Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, who also doubles as the caretaker Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. The main objective of the operation is to engage the street-connected people and make sure they leave the streets, because begging is prohibited in this country by the decree of 1969. We are also aware of the dangers children are exposed to. We advise them to send the children to school and also look for jobs if they want to. Almost all those we met during the operation were foreigners, and our next step, as I've already stated in my earlier response, is to get embassies involved through our foreign ministry to get them off our streets. Mr. Speaker, the ministry has also introduced the fostering program which places vulnerable children, including children on the streets with foster parents. So far, 245 children have been placed with foster parents who have been trained, certified, and registered. We've trained a total of 904 foster parents for possible placements of the children. And I also want to state, Mr. Speaker, that we are carrying out reunification, reintegration, and rehabilitation of the children on the streets, especially those who are Ghanaians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the complexity of human trafficking and the fact that we now are aware of the fact that there are potential sleeper cells, what exactly is the timeline that the ministry is using to repatriate these persons, but the immediacy of removing them from our ceremonial streets, especially as a lot of motorists have been physically assaulted by some of these persons?
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I heard the honourable member right, she's asking about timelines. Yes, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier, we are engaging the embassy, especially the embassy of Niger, through our foreign affairs, because this is a diplomatic negotiation that we need to have with them. And as a result of the exercise we carried out on the 10th of December, we have realized that the hotspots that we visited, they have left. And we are also working with the MMDAs to make sure that there is a constant patrol of their officials to make sure they don't stay on the streets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the minister aware of the fact that as we speak now, these people she's referring to that have been removed are still on the islands of our main streets in the Independence Avenue? We have them near the National Theatre, as well as near the Asylum Down intersection. That is just naming the place in my constituency. So who is responsible for making sure that they do not come back, if indeed they've all been removed? Because as we speak, these children with their adult guardians are still begging and causing mayhem on the streets.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, they are all over Accra, and they have hotspots, as I said, that they operate from. We have learned, Mr. Speaker, that there are vehicles that come in the morning to drop them and take them out in the evening. We've also done our groundwork to note that they have a place they go in the evening to sleep. We are going to engage them on that scene as well. And like I said, Mr. Speaker, the MMDAs are involved, and we will continue to work with them to make sure they leave our streets, especially these children who are exposed to accidents, etc. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the minister's answer, she restricts her response of those she's collaborating with as mainly the MMDAs. What is the involvement of the police and national security given the threat of the infiltration of sleeper cells into our country by foreign nationals?
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, because of the sensitive nature of the exercise, we wanted the civilians to start work in that area. When it comes to the crunch, we will involve the security personnel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Yes, Honourable Member for
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. May I know from the Minister
if she has a fair idea as to the number of children who have been reintegrated, and also whether Ghanaian children and mothers, some of them are also in the capital city of Niger doing the same thing. I want to know. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not aware of any Ghanaian children doing same in Niger. That is why we are forcing them to leave our streets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much,
Plains,
Mr.
right?
Speaker.
From Plains South.
Yes, from Plains North.
From Plains North, Mr. Speaker.
From Plains North.
Yes,
Very well.
Honorable Betty Crosby Benson, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker. Yes. Honorable Minister, thank you very much. But in your response, you realize that most of the strategies are geared towards removing foreign nationals in the country. Again, we are all aware and we know that most of these people who are Ghanaians, the aged and the disabled, most of them are Ghanaians. So I want to know, and they are living below poverty line. I want to know exactly what measures you are putting in place to train and empower them so they can completely leave the streets. Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The very young ones cannot be trained yet. They have to be sent to school. There are some that have been reunited with their families. Some have also been placed in foster homes. For those who are above age and can work, we have trained some of them into various vocational skills, and they are engaged and earning money. Some parents who are so vulnerable that they cannot even go out and earn money will be put on the leave. Some have already been put on leave, and all the rest will be put on the leave. But essentially, the young ones are sent back to school. They are encouraged to go back to school. We have put some also in the shelter to make sure they are off the streets and out of danger. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, thank you. You know, it's reassuring to hear the efforts that are being made, but the truth of the matter remains that the image that this picture of children running in between vehicles, the image that it paints about our country is not good. We may be touted as doing well in Ghana, but when people come into our country, what they see is what they live with. No two ways about it. So I am thinking that there's a way in which you can engage even your colleague members of parliament for us to come to the table, have a proper discussion on how we can get these children off the street. It's not as if the efforts have never been done. Why are we not succeeding? Why are we not succeeding in getting the children permanently off our streets? And it probably learned from other countries.
Honorable, can you ask the question? The commentary is getting too long. Conclude with your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Minister, why are we not succeeding in getting the children off the streets permanently? Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, we will continue to engage, as the honourable member has proposed, but a permanent solution will depend on a number of factors, and that's what I've enumerated earlier on. We'll still continue to engage and make sure we give what we are doing a human face because of the children involved. We would want to see our big cities rid of these street children and street women from foreign lands. They have no business being in Ghana and walking on the streets doing nothing apart from begging. Thank you, Mr.
Very well. I'll go on to the next question. Question number 254. Honorable Member for Korle Klottey, Dr. Zanito Ajiman Rollins.
Are you done with your 3 amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection what plans the ministry has to develop the Ifo Sutherland Children's Park into an outdoor recreational park.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection has developed a proposal to transform the Children's Park into a child-friendly playing facility with the protection of the environment in mind. A multi-sectoral technical committee is being constituted to oversee the process, and as part of their terms of reference, they will be tasked to look for resources for the development of the park, including the exploration of public-private partnership, PPP. Mr. Speaker, we are using this platform to encourage our honorable members of parliament, private sector, individuals and philanthropists to come on board. We are also having discussions with the Ministry of Railways on their proposal to redevelop the park as part of the construction of a railway line between Accra and Adenta, which, when developed, will pass along the park with a station. This I've just touched base with the Minister for Railways, saying he will have to have a look, and the ministry also will have a look to review this. We are still waiting for more proposals to pick the best for the park to be developed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Am I to understand from the minister's answer that this park, which is probably the only green zone, public green zone in this part of Accra, is going to have a railway going through it, depriving the city of a green area?
Mr. Speaker, the proposal was made, and I did say that is being reviewed vis-a-vis the new trend that we want to engage stakeholders on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
You don't understand.
Will the minister kindly give specifics with regards to the guidelines or the criteria that will govern the development of what is to be an outdoor recreational area? And will this involve a proper green area, or is this being transformed into something else?
Yes,
Mr. Speaker, the eco concern will be part of any development that will take place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are you done? You have one more opportunity.
No, Mr. Speaker, I didn't get an answer to my question with regards to the details of what this development will entail.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I earlier on stated that we are looking at a number of proposals, and the concern of keeping the greenery intact or making sure that we keep a lot of the trees and the eco-friendly environment will be done. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, would the minister be kind enough to share the details when the engagement with proposed stakeholders on this project is available, in order for some kind of an assessment to be made on whether it is adhering to the guidelines of what a green zone should be when the time comes?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I cannot, with due respect, standing here give any details. But what I can say is that we are still waiting for proposals. So nothing is definite. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Yes, Honourable Member for the
Mr. Speaker, in the answer of the minister, she did suggest that there was a proposal to take a railway line through the park and probably put a station, Mr. Speaker, that will be a disaster. Can the minister assure this House that we will not put a train station under any condition at the children's park, under any of the proposals? Can you assure this House?
Mr. Speaker, I did say, and I will beg of you to repeat, that as conferred with the Minister for Railways, it is not on the books now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I'll proceed to the next question. It's in the name of the Honourable Member for Bunkurubu, Mr. Abednego Azuma Bandli.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I arise to ask the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection the list and contact details of all beneficiaries on the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program in the Bunkurubu Nampanduri district. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the LEAD program as an institution has its operations guided by the Data Protection Act, Act 843 of 2012, which seeks to protect data of the vulnerable and any individuals whose data has been collected by the program for the purpose of research and providing intervention or safeguard to the vulnerable in the society. Mr. Speaker, in view of the Act, we are therefore providing you a summary of the numbers of beneficiaries in each community in the district as provided in Table 1. Mr. Speaker, with your kind indulgence, it's a long list, if I may go through it. Mr. Speaker, with your kind indulgence, I think it's printed in the order paper, and if there are any questions, further questions, I'll take them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Kindly know that the table office is part of that. Very well. Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the Minister's answer, she made reference to the Data Protection Act that limits her to provide the information I'm seeking for. Can the Minister be specific as to the provisions in the Data Protection Act that she's making reference to?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The relevant portions have been quoted. It says, this Act seeks to protect data of the vulnerable and any individuals whose data has been collected by the program for the purposes of research and providing intervention or safeguard to the vulnerable in the society. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I actually asked for the provision. I wanted the provision, but she's quoted something.
But the provision is published, so kindly find it out yourself.
It's not public.
Sorry. What I mean is that the law is a public document. The library here has it, so you can always find out.
Very well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister provide the House with the category or the process by which people are selected? What is the qualification for selecting people as beneficiaries?
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Speaker, we can, so we'll provide it later. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, you have one more opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, I would have thought that the Minister would have this information and not go and come back with the information I'm requesting for.
Honourable Member, I'm being very generous. We are guided by rules. follow-up questions should not introduce new subjects. What you're asking for is procedure. Earlier on, you asked for information that is provided. So you said you provide the procedure another time. If you want to ask another question, please go on.
That will be all, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Yes. Do you want to ask her a question? Very well. Honorable Minister, thank you for attending upon the House to answer questions. Your discharge. Yes, Honorable Chibu.
Speaker, I'll seek your kind leave for us to go back to presentation of papers and take item 12 on page 11. Speaker, with your leave.
Item 12 is a motion, it's not presentation of papers.
Speaker rallies with the motion.
Very well. Item 12, motion by the Minister for Railway Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectively move that this August House considers and convey approval for the 2022 budget estimate for my ministry, Ministry of Railway Development, and its agencies in the total sum of 575,970,000 Ghana cedis for the implementation of government priority programs and projects under the railway sector. Mr. Speaker, the breakdown of the 2022 budget estimate is as follows. Compensations, 5,291,000 Ghana cedis. Goods and services, 13,037,000 Ghana cedis. Capital expenditure, 557,642,000 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, the railway sector, as we all are aware, continues to be a high priority of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. To this end, the 2022 budget for the Ministry of Railway Development will be applied to activities geared towards the revitalization and modernizations of Ghana's railway system to facilitate the efficient and effective movement of both cargo and passengers. The focus for the 2022, Mr. Speaker, will be the continuation of all the ongoing development works currently going on the Western Line, continuation of the construction of works on standard gauge on the Tema-Mpakadan line. The Eastern Line, Mr. Speaker, is also being considered, and also acquisitions of new rolling stocks will also be considered in the 2022. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this August House gives approval for the Ministry's budget estimate for 575,970,000 Ghana cedis for the 2022 fiscal year. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion, and doing so, I would like to present the committee's report. I will urge the Hansard Department to capture the entire report as being read, as I focus on some salient points or highlighted areas. Mr. Speaker, I'll move straight to observations. Mr. Speaker, paragraph 8.3, the committee was informed that the new standard gauge Western Railway line is expected to continue from Mansu to Hunivali in 2022 by Mase Amendi. Mr. Speaker, under a credit facility secured by government. The project will include the conversion of the dual K tracks between Takrady and Kojokrom from narrow gauge to standard gauge, the construction of a new standard gauge rail line from the Takrady station to the Takrady port in order to have a continuous standard gauge connection from the port to the Insuta bauxite mine and other mines to facilitate the efficient haulage of minerals. Mr. Speaker, additionally, the government of Ghana is providing a fund under the annual budget funding for the development of new 6-kilometer standard rail line in Kumasi from Edum to Kasi. The contractor, Marcel David Water Limited, has mobilized to site to undertake site clearance works for the construction of the new standard gauge line. The project is expected to be completed over a 12-month period. Mr. Speaker, I will move straight to conclusion. Paragraph 9. Mr. Speaker, the committee hereby recommend to the House to approve the sum of 575,970,000 for the Ministry of Railway Development for the 2022 fiscal year. I respectfully submit, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Ranking Member.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, once again, the bulk of the allocation given to this ministry in 2021 was not released. The bulk of the money they had was what the development partners spent in relation to the Mpakadam project so far. Mr. Speaker, in 2021, the ministry projected to spend 3.7 million Ghana cedi on compensation. As of September this year, they've drawn down less than 40%. Mr. Speaker, there must be something wrong, because by end of September, you should be drawing down about 70% of your compensation. Either they didn't recruit the people or they refused to pay them. So I don't know why you have a situation where your compensation budget is so underutilized. Yet in 2022, you are projecting to spend 5.2 million Ghana cedi when you couldn't even utilize much of what you were given in 2021. It doesn't add up. I think the ministry must explain. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware the Mpakadam project, but actually the name of the project is Akosombo. It was the former minister of railway that changed it to the alignment to Mpakadam, but the official name of the project must still remain Akosombo, because that is what the contract is. Mr. Speaker, that project we are told is 90% complete. The problem, though, is that if that project is completed next year, as we are told, it may not inure to the benefit of Ghanaians as required. Because, Mr. Speaker, when you get to Mpakadam, there isn't a terminal. They said they were going to do a temporary terminal. But, Mr. Speaker, anybody who knows Mpakadam, what will be the motivation to move containers from Tema to Mpakadam? What are you going to do with it? Unless you build. We have a situation where you can put them back on a barge, on a water lake, and then take them to Yaki. So, as long as we don't have an eminent project to build a platform across the river, this project would remain a white elephant when it's completed. And I encourage the minister to do something about it. Mr. Speaker, surprisingly, I didn't see anything about the Sky Train as part of when it's going to be completed. Whilst my good friend, the minister is here, I will encourage him to make it conclusive. Are we going to have a Sky Train or not? Because if we were going to have it, I was expecting that something about it would have been in the budget. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I'm disappointed in the figures, the way the ministry utilize their own figure in terms of the things that are under their control, the compensation. Maybe the minister can explain to us why they underutilize their compensation. Mr. Speaker, there's something that we should also be aware of. We are told that we are expanding our rail network, and we should be building capacity in terms of maintenance when the developers finish and leave the shores. We want the minister to continue to explain to us how that capacity building will be quicker, because from next year, when the, for instance, Pakadan project is finished and handed over to us, Ghanaians must be able to get on board and maintain this rail line, even if it's not in use. So, Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I wish we could get more from this, but at this moment, it's a bit unfinished job. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, Honorable Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge both houses of the House to support and approve the budgets for the Ministry of Railway Development, an amount of 575,970,000 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, railway in terms of transport is the second fastest in the world, and as a nation, we need to emphasize more on our railway line. Mr. Speaker, in spite of inadequate resources to the ministry in 2021 has done marvelous work, and as a nation, we need to commend the ministry and its agencies. Mr. Speaker, the Temani in Pakadan, as my colleague has said, we need to operationalize it. In doing so, the ministry is acquiring 9 passenger locomotives, 45 passenger coaches, 15 freight locomotives, and others in order to operationalize the Tema-Akosombo railway line. Mr. Speaker, one area that I want us to commend the Ministry of Railway is reactivation of the training college into a university. And this year, 2021, the ministry, through the university in collaboration with University of Mines and Technology, Takwa, has admitted 300 students to pursue the various courses in BSc, Mechanical Engineer, BSc, Electrical and Electronic Engineer, Computers, and others. Mr. Speaker, the ministry has also emphasized in the report that they are going to reactivate the workshop in order to maintain the locomotives and other coaches that are imported into the country. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I want to urge the Ministry of Finance and the government, as a matter of agency, to support the Ministry of Railway Development to develop our railway in order to ease the traffic on our various road sector. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the motion on the floor. Mr. Speaker, encroachment on railway land has been one of the major problems confronting the smooth operation or smooth activity with the Ghana Railways Authority. The problem, Mr. Speaker, has been that for some time now, and most of the time when opportunities are given for us to discuss railway issues, the issue of railway land encroachment has been on the fore. The critical concern has been that the authority hasn't taken steps to ensure that they have title to these lands. And because of the fact that they don't have title to this land, it encourages encroachment of these areas or space. And what we see now is the erection of homes, residential homes, buildings, warehouses, and many more within the Western Railway track. And so it is recommended that the ministry should take the appropriate steps, first of all, to ensure that they have title to their land, and again also try to ensure that encroachment has been brought to a reasonable control. Mr. Speaker, one other aspect of the issue that was a concern to the committee was the issue related to monitoring of works and programs. In 2021, it was recorded that there was a budget of 10 rounds, that they planned that to have 10 monitoring rounds. Unfortunately, they were able to have only 5 of them. And because of the fact that there have not been appropriate monitoring, all these lands have been encroached. And all these lands, we see that illegal activities like illegal mining springing in these areas. So I think we recommend, the committee recommended that the ministry should take appropriate steps to ensure that all these lands, even those that we have title to them, are not in the mercy of, are not being encroached by illegal miners. Mr. Speaker, it came to the realization in the committee that staffing and office accommodation is also a problem for the ministry, and therefore, if they can perform their work very well and judiciously, then the appropriate support must be given to the ministry so that they can recruit or they can get qualified staff and also have the appropriate office accommodation to aid their work. Because some of these things are not happening, the challenge is that the railway ministry's performance will be a matter of a challenge, and therefore the request that the ministry or the government releases appropriate support or gives appropriate support to this ministry will be appreciated. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I want to say that the ministry should accordingly take steps to rectify all those areas that we have enumerated as being a challenge to them. Thank you so very much.
Honourable members, I'll put a question. At the conclusion of the debate, the question is: all in favour of the motion, say aye. Aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Yes.
Speaker, I guess we can now go on to presentation of papers and take item 8B III on page 5. The Speaker, seek your leave. I'll seek your leave for the Deputy Minister of Finance to do the laying.
Very well. By the Minister for Finance, presentation of papers. Honourable Deputy Minister. Item III.
Credit Facility Agreement between the Government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Finance, and the International Development Association of the World Bank Group for an amount of $75 million United States dollars, supplemented by a grant amount of $28,360,000 United States dollars to be provided through the following grants. 1. GEF, $12,756,881 United States dollars. Pro Green, $15 million United States dollars. EGPS, $600,000 United States dollars for the Ghana Landscape Restoration and Small-Scale Mining Project.
The paper is duly presented. It's referred to the Committee on Finance to consider and report. Yes, Honourable Chief.
Speaker, we continue with presentation of papers. Speaker, I'll seek your leave for the Deputy Majority Leader to do the laying of these items. Speaker, page 6. Item 8D. That's the first one. 8D on page 6. E. F. All on page 6. And then we'll continue on page 7. Item I. J. All on page 7. And go on to page 8. Item
L, M, a speaker with the M, we are laying I, and continue to N, all on page 8. And finally, page 9, item Q. Speaker, with your leave, to be laid by the Deputy Majority Leader.
Including item Q, which is Committee on Education. Yeah, very well. Let's start from item D. Yes, Honorable Deputy Whip.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. The Chief Whip has mentioned a number of committee reports, and he's seeking the leave of the House and that of you for the Deputy Majority Leader to lay those reports on behalf of the chairman of these committees. Mr. Speaker, this is alien to the practice of this House. If members of those committees are in the chamber, he can seek the leave of that for the members of the individual committee to lay the reports on behalf of the committees. But for the Deputy Majority Leader to lay all these committee reports on behalf of the chairman of those committees. Mr. Speaker, even though we are hard pressed with time, but this is an alien to the practice of the House. And if we continue to slack the rules and procedures of this House to this level, Mr. Speaker, we may be getting to a very bad decision. So if members are here who agree for individual members to lay the reports on behalf of the various committees.
Yes.
Speaker, I think we have some good understanding and working relationship. And I know my colleague do understand. We have engaged the leadership extensively, ranking and the chairman, and a number of the committee members are also here. So if my colleague was seat, this is not a matter we should drag. It's just a laying. And what is essential is that, Speaker, we've engaged the ranking members and the committee chairs, and they have given their consent for the laying to be done. So I'll plead with my colleague to yield to this for it to be done, for us to move forward.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not proving to be very difficult, but all I'm saying is that for all you know, all those committee reports mentioned might not be ready. There may not be copies to be present. Okay, if you can give me copies of those reports here, for me to know that these are the reports that are being laid. I don't want the situation. I was not at the pre-sitting meeting, and I'm the only one here. If I say no problem, go ahead. Only for ranking members or members of the individual committees to come. Oh, at the committee meeting, this is what happened. This report is not ready, and that, Mr. Speaker, we may be going back and forth. That is why I'm just saying that if the members are here, and Mr. Speaker, members must be here to lay those reports. Excuse me, let's go by that.
Speaker, I can assure my colleague that we are on the same page, to the extent that all the leadership of these committees, in fact, I took time to go through them. I don't need to mention names of committee members who are here to prove my case. Quite a number of them are here, but I agree with you that not all of them are here. But Speaker, we have spoken to the leadership of these committees, and they are only fine-tuning their report, and hence they've given indication that we should go ahead and do the laying while they fine-tune the report. So, my colleague, I want to humbly plead with my good friend. I know he's been supporting in this enterprise, but I want to plead with you.
Let's do step by step.
Well,
let's take them one by one. One, please. Item 8B by the chairman of the committee. Yes.
Report of the Joint Committee on Gender and Children and Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection for the year ending 31st December 2022.
The report is presented for distribution to members. E.
Report of the Committee on Mines and Energy on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Energy for the year ending 31st December 2022.
A report is duly presented for distribution to members. F.
Report of the Joint Committee on Trade, Industry and Tourism and Youth, Sports and Culture on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture for the year ending 31st December 2022.
The report is duly presented for distribution to members. Item I, by Chairman of the Committee, Foreign Affairs.
Report of the Committee on Foreign Affairs on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration for the year ending 31st December 2022.
A report is duly presented for distribution to members. Item J. Item J. Chairman of the Committee on Trade. Yes.
Report of the Committee on Trade, Industry and Tourism on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Trade and Industry for the year ending 31st December 2022.
A report is duly presented for distribution to members. Item FI.
Report of the Committee on Works and Housing on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Works and Housing for the year ending 31st December 2022.
A report is duly presented for distribution to members. Item LII.
Report of the Committee on Works and Housing on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources for the year ending 31st December 2022.
A report is duly presented is for distribution to members. Item MI.
Report of the Committee on Defense and Interior on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of National Security for the year ending 31st December 2022.
A report is duly presented for distribution to members. Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, with deference to the chair, the chairman of the Committee of Defense and Interior, West and Housing has just approached me, Trade and Industry have just approached me, that the reports are not ready and we are laying it. So, Mr. Speaker, let's tread with caution. The way we are going is budget and economic policy. And Mr. Speaker, we must tread with caution. Let's slow down.
Which report?
Mr. Speaker, I'm a member.
Yes.
I am a member of the Defense and Interior Committee.
The report is duly presented for distribution to members. Yes. Item MII. Yes, Honorable Member for.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful. Mr. Speaker, I just saw my chairman presenting this report. Laying the report. At the meeting yesterday, we were not conclusive. So I don't know the kind of report he's laying. I just want to draw your attention to it. Thank you.
Very well. Yes.
Speaker, we are not litigating on this matter. We can go on to page 8, so we're on the same page, and take item N for Noble. The chairman is here.
Hold on. He raises an issue about a committee's report not being ready. Which committee was that?
Mr. Speaker, that is Trade, Industry and Tourism. But the report is the Ministry of Trade's report, estimates. And I'm saying that we had asked that they bring us some information on the basis of which we'll be able to take a decision. That information hasn't come. And the chairman is laying the report. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, I'm quite surprised about my colleague's outburst, actually, if I may say, because I have had a discussion, or we have had a discussion together. We've asked the ministry to supply with some information, which information is supposed to be given to us by the close of today. And that information has got nothing to do with the report we are laying. So I see no reason why my colleague should, impugn some kind of an integrity defect on myself. When I have discussed this matter with my ranking member, in fact, and we are in concert as far as this matter is concerned. So I would plead with my colleague to exercise restraint. We are not forcing anything on anybody. We are only trying to do something for the nation. And that is what we expect him to accept. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I heard the chairman himself saying that they've requested for information that is coming before the close of today. So it clearly shows that your report is not ready. If you have information that you are expecting by the close of the day, please get that information, incorporate it into your report so that tomorrow it can be laid. Because, I mean, if you look at our standing orders, it's very, very clear that the only time that you lay a report is when you have sufficient copies. So, since you are not done, please wait. We've laid a lot of them. If the reports are ready, we can take those motions without necessarily wasting time on those that are not ready. So let's go on those that are ready so that we don't waste further time. Thank you.
Speaker, we are in total agreement. We can now go on to item N on same page 9. Item N for Noble. Speaker, the chairman is here.
Very well.
Yes.
Chairman of Committee on Lands and Forestry, item N.
Report of the Joint Committee on Lands and Forestry and Mines and Energy on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources for the year ending 31st December 2022.
A report is duly presented for distribution to members. The last one is item Q, is that right? Q.
I will seek your leave to lay this item.
Which one?
Mr. Speaker, item Q, that's for the Minister of Education. The ranking is here, that is not ready. So
I've not called it. I'm only asking whether they are ready.
Speaker, I guess we can now go on to page 10 and take item 11. It is a motion. Item 11 on page 10.
Yes.
Thank you, Speaker. With all due respect, my attention has just been drawn to the fact that I missed it when it was called. That item number N, 8N, report of the Joint Committee on Lands and Forestry and Mines and Energy on the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Lands and year ending 31st December 2022 was called and laid. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, we are just coming from that joint meeting. I do not know what is being laid when we have not even seen any report after the meeting. So, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I will wish that this is stood down until we are given copies of even the outcome of the meeting before we can be said to be laying a report of a meeting that has just ended. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Yes, Chairman of the committee.
Mr. Speaker, I just discussed with the ranking member. We have finished the report. We are yet to go and, have a small meeting, and then we can lay and then present the report tomorrow.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, for the avoidance of doubt, I want to guide the chairman that you should go to order 75. You are shooting yourself in the head and you are saying that you want to be alive.
This disrespect is taken.
So, please. It's not ready. You've laid it. So you should better tell us, maybe you are waiting to get it at the printing room. At the ranking, is it ready? Have you seen the report? Then the ranking hasn't seen the report.
Speaker.
It's at the printing room.
Speaker.
Printing room. Okay, it's printing room.
Speaker, I guess.
Honorable members, I think that if you want to ride the kangaroo, you must learn the kangaroo tactics.
Speaker, we will stand that down.
Very well. So, item N is stood down to be laid afresh. Yes, let's proceed.
Speaker,
with.
Clearly, the minority chief whip has been sufficiently informed that the printing is actively going on, it's being done, and hence we should leave it as it is. It's been laid, and then we can proceed to take item 11 on page 10.
Thank you.
Speaker, thank you.
Very well. Item 11 by the Minister for Roads and Highways.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that this Honorable House approves the sum of 4,673,000 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Roads and Highways and its agencies for its work for the year ending 31st December 2022. Mr. Speaker, this is made up of compensation of 67,206,000 Ghana cedis, goods and services 2,201,000 Ghana cedis, and capex 1,044,289,000 Ghana cedis, all totaling 1,113,696,000 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, my Ministry of Roads and Highways has an oversight responsibility over almost 80,000 kilometers of roads in our country, and we wish to carry out both routine and periodic maintenance on our roads in the ensuing year of 2022. Mr. Speaker, this year the sector plans to complete, among other road activities, 25,000 kilometers, 16,000 kilometers and 3,500 kilometers of trunk, feeder and urban roads respectively in the area of routine maintenance activities. Mr. Speaker, this clearance common knowledge successfully declared years 2020 and 2021 as year of roads by His Excellency the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Major road projects are earmarked to be undertaken by my ministry in all the 16 regions of our nation all the 261 districts of our nation and all the 275 constituencies of our country, during the year, under His Excellency the President and under review. And I am hoping that every single member of this honorable and august house is going to be a direct beneficiary of all these road projects, together with other road activities, like construction of bridges in our constituencies, with the hope that all the earmarked levies will go through to support the payment to contractors to undertake road construction in our country. With these laudable programs and with the great hope for our country in the road sector, Mr. Speaker, I once more move that this Honorable House approves this amount to enable the Ministry and the government undertake its road activities in 2022. I so move, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Yes, Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Minister of Roads and Highways. In so doing, Mr. Speaker, I will present your committee's report and urge the Hansard Department to capture the entire report as being read, whilst I go through some key points in the report. Mr. Speaker, I will quickly move to paragraph 10.2 observation. Mr. Speaker, the committee recommends to the Ministry of Finance to consider giving some exemptions to the road fund to enable it to utilize all monies paid into the fund to meet its obligations. The committee further urges the Ministry of Finance to ensure that monies expected to be made available to the road fund are duly released on time. Mr. Speaker, paragraph 10.3, the committee was informed of government policy to dualize all trunk roads. This includes Accra Cape Coast, Accra Flao, Accra Kumasi, and Accra Kosumo. The committee further noted that the occurrence of accidents on these roads are mostly due to wrongful overtaking, which often result in head-on collision. The dualization of major trunk roads in the country is therefore critical for the reduction and prevention of road traffic accidents. It will further reduce travel time and boost business as well. Mr. Speaker, paragraph 10.7, the committee observed that as at September 2021, outstanding arrears on GOG related projects and road fund related projects stand at 2.8 billion Ghana cedi and 4.5 billion respectively. This unsustainable debt is affecting the delivery of critical road projects across the country. The Ministry of Finance should allocate funds to pay the outstanding arrears. Speaker, in conclusion, the committee, having critically scrutinized the 2022 annual budget estimate of the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and bearing in mind that road construction is a priority of the government, recommend to the House to approve the sum of 4,673,000 for the program of the Ministry of Roads and Highways for the fiscal year 2022. I respectfully submitted, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Ranking Member.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in relation to the motion moved by the Minister and then seconded by the Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I will go straight by commenting on an issue that came up during the meeting. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, some of our citizens have concerns about the quality of roads that we are building in the country. Mr. Speaker, it turns out that if you look at the staff strength, for instance, Mr. Speaker, of Ghana Highway Authority, their staff strength keep dwindling, reducing year by year. In 2017, 1,296. In 2018, 1,197. In 2019, 1,168. In 2020, 1,005. Mr. Speaker, how come the minister says that we are doing more road projects, yet we have less people available to do the work? Basically, Mr. Speaker, is because the ministry is one of the agencies that pays the least. Mr. Speaker, it will shock you to know that a senior engineer in any of the entities just take home 3,000 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, you are not going to get any engineer who will be dedicated to supervise work properly if you pay him 3,000 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, the ministry must take steps to find ways of giving the engineers they employ. If somebody is supervising a 150 million euro project and his salary is 3,000 Ghana cedis, Mr. Speaker, are you really expecting him to give off his best? Mr. Speaker, I think we need to work on this. Mr. Speaker, secondly, at this ministry also, there's something wrong about their compensation. As of September, they could only draw down about 30% of their compensation. I don't understand it. Is it the case that you are not paying your staff, or you've sacked some people? I don't get it. Because by September, your compensation releases should be hitting about 70%, less than 30%. Mr. Speaker, I think the ministry should be able to do something about it. Mr. Speaker, the biggest problem about this ministry is funding. And part of the problem is self-inflicted. Mr. Speaker, if you compute the figures from 2017 to today, the finance minister has taken close to 4 billion Ghana cedi out of the road fund alone through capping. Mr. Speaker, look at this. At the same time, road fund is now owing contractors 4.5 billion Ghana cedi. The GOG owing them another 2.4 billion, in excess of 7 billion Ghana cedi. If you took almost 4 billion out of the road fund, and now out of that, government of Ghana's payment to contractors sometimes get to 40% interest on delayed payment. In effect, when you pay 100 Ghana cedi to a contractor, 40 cedis of that is of no value. It's just interest that is paid to the bank. So how useful is this? Mr. Speaker, I am saying that the capping of the road fund is counterproductive. We should just stop it because it's not helping anybody. Mr. Speaker, on page 9, paragraph 7.2.7, under PPP, Mr. Speaker, I can see the ministry saying that the Accra-Temamoto Way PPP project financing arrangement has been completed. Mr. Speaker, there is no contract on Accra-Temamoto Way. Mr. Minister, you have cancelled the PPP bidding process. So how come you come to this house every day telling us that there's a PPP agreement? You don't have a PPP arrangement with Motor Angels because you cancelled it in December last year, in 2020. So, Mr. Speaker, the information from the ministry is not correct. We do not have a legitimate contract under this. And, Mr. Speaker, to say that the PPP arrangement, the financing agreement has been completed. Can you complete a PPP financing agreement when you don't have a proper contract? Mr. Speaker, the minister must take note of this and do the right thing. We are not against the construction of the motorway, but we believe that what he claims as a contract with Motor Angels is not a legitimate contract. He must come back to this house. Mr. Speaker, when you look at, how do you call it, the other issue raised in this report, vegetation control along the road, Mr. Speaker, it will surprise you to know, Mr. Speaker, that when our compatriots volunteer to cut vegetation by the roadside, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, 15,000 cedis. This ministry will owe an old lady 15,000 cedis for 3 years. I had a situation where people turn up at my office thinking that I have a way of helping them. Mr. Speaker, if you consider these things, we could do better. Mr. Speaker, the potholes on our roads are becoming bigger. Indeed, the ministry is doing something about roads. Yes, asphaltic overlay is going on in some parts of the country, especially our major cities. But the road in my village is getting worse by the day. I don't know about the minister's own road. Perhaps his is better than mine. But, Mr. Speaker, the ministry has failed to make any substantive comment about the reasons he suspended toll collection and what the future program will be about road tolls in this country. Mr. Speaker, we know for sure that road tolls give us about 78 million Ghana cedi. from the day the minister stopped the collection of the tolls to the 31st December, we might have lost about 10 million Ghana cedi. Mr. Speaker, the ministry is struggling to pay salaries. Yet, when we approved for them to collect 78 million Ghana cedi, they decided to throw away 10 million Ghana cedi. Mr. Speaker, I can only support the estimate of this ministry if we get to appropriation, if we deduct 10 million Ghana cedis out of the appropriation, Mr. Speaker. I will not be able to support unless we take 10 million Ghana cedi, which is money that they deliberately lost, out of the road fund, out of the appropriation. If we get there and they don't deduct it, I will not be able to support the ministry on that basis. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to issues of contractors.
Hold on. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I was paying attention to his submission. It appears his voice went up, so I couldn't hear him well. Just to let him take it easy so we can all follow him. But, Mr. Speaker, Kwame debates well, but Abuja.
He is communicating to
Mr. Speaker, he is my friend, and I'm calling his attention to something. Kwame, sure.
So what was your point of order, leader? I didn't
Mr.
get.
Speaker, he is a friend, and he knows I enjoy his debates. He knows. But
You're
when his voice
order.
goes up, and I can't hear him, how do we enjoy each other?
I told my former friend the other day that he is my former friend. He should stop saying he's my friend. We were friends, but today we are not friends. Mr. Speaker, the issue I raised about the road toll, Mr. Speaker, I believe the minister can, you should give him the opportunity to respond to this. And for me, the last thing I want to talk about is the Sino Hydro project. Mr. Speaker, in this document, since 2018, that this House approved the agreement under the matter agreement for Sino Hydro. I've heard certain individuals in government suggest that the House has approved that as and when the project starts, we start counting the 12 months. Mr. Speaker, what I supported on this floor said that the 10 projects were starting at the same time. There was no clause in that agreement that says that as and when it starts. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, 4 of the projects haven't started. They are calling it, how do you call it? Commencement delayed. The highest is the Tamale flyover, which is 84%. By the way, that is one of the smallest projects. Mr. Speaker, I'm telling the minister, Sino Hydro is not a banker in terms of delivering growth in this project. Look for an alternative. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I made my comment and can only support the estimate. If we get to appropriation, if we deduct 10 million Ghana cedi out of the goods and services of the ministry, because they deliberately decided to let that money go when Parliament gave them the opportunity to collect that money. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You deduct what they lost in 2021 from what they proposed to take in 2022.
Yes, 2022, because the 2021 have been spent already. 2022 appropriation, if we get there, they might deduct 10 million Ghana cedi from
I hope you are going to charge it against me, so that, because I supported that position that time. Anyway, very well, I'll put the question. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to the motion.
I'm not on your feet. I wouldn't know you want to speak.
I think the issue relating to roads is very critical.
Yes, please.
And when it comes to discussing roads, let all participate in doing that, because after all, we all have issues with our roads. So therefore, it is important that we get to know that the committee recognize the challenges with our maintenance regime. And so the issue relating to paragraph 10.5, which is vegetation control along roads, that's the grass cutter, that's the grass cutting of vegetation along the roads. Paragraph 10.6, with the issues related to potholes. These are issues related to maintenance, and it is routine maintenance. So if you have our roads fraught with potholes, sometimes it is manholes, then it means that the issue related to maintenance is a problem. Now, Mr. Speaker, we realize that even in the budget, the allocation for the maintenance of our road relating to routine was a little over 44,000. And therefore, if a total road network of 78,400 kilometers is before us, and if we think that maintenance is key, then I think we should devote enough attention to that. We have a ring-fence fund for road maintenance, that is a road fund. Road fund now, at every fuel liter that we buy, you have about 48 pesos. Therefore, granted that at the end of the year, and some research have come out, that we use or we burn about 5 billion liters of fuel. That means that if you multiply the 48 pesos by the 5 billion a year, you are running into about 2.5 billion. That is what is coming to the road fund. But a challenge, as my rankings talked about, related to capping. If you have close to 2 billion accruing from road fund, if we should give the road ministry about 1 billion, so much can be used for road maintenance. And so the regime, the maintenance regime, realized that need to be popped up, need to be improved, appropriate releases must be given. Mr. Speaker, we realize that even when these monies are there and the capping is also, taking part of it, the actual money is not even released to them. And in the year 2021, we realized that out of the so much money that accrued into the road fund, about 600 million was released to the ministry. And I will still have in a total debt of about 4.5 million Ghana cedis as debt. And we don't even know the provision. What provision are we making for the road contractors to be paid out of this? Mr. Speaker, it is also important to note, to realize that the issue relating to arrears of the payment to road contractors, we have that section of road fund amounting to 4.5 billion. The GOG also amounting to about 2.8 billion. How are we going to pay this? And we don't see any hope there going therefore. Mr. Speaker, it is also important to note, as my ranking talked about, relating to the road tolls. We have about 78 million Ghana cedis accruing to the road toll, and that is significant enough. If this portion of fund is there, the issue relating to the pothole patching and so could be taken care of. Now, we've thrown all these things away, and we hope that the minister or the finance ministry release the appropriate funds to the ministry to do its work. Mr. Speaker, my ranking has said much about many things. Issues related to capping, issues relating to vegetation control, issues relating to pothole patching, indeed, all about the issue of maintenance regime. But of critical importance again is the ultimate release of funds. It is recommended that the ministry should be given the appropriate releases so that it could do its job and do its job appropriately. Mr. Speaker, the issue related to manpower, manning, it means that if the ministry, the agencies don't have the appropriate men with appropriate skills to do their job, that means that all these things we're talking about, maintenance and routine maintenance and periodic maintenance, are going to be a challenge. So we make sure that we give appropriate training, we give them appropriate training, manpower, the capacity training to these staff. We recruit enough staff for the ministry, give them appropriate training, otherwise they leave. Mr. Speaker, it is also critical to note that here, particularly with road fund, particularly with the feeder roads, our engineers, through the decentralization system, are now in the various assemblies. So the highest level our engineer could go is to become a coordinating director. So there isn't enough motivation. In the past, you see that the engineer, young engineer, who rise to the level of becoming the chief director. But what we have now, we have particularly staff, engineers with feeder roads, rising up to just the position of a coordinating director. It's not incentive enough for them. And in addition to that, their salaries are not too attractive enough. So they leave. So we think that the ministry should take steps to motivate, incentivize our staff or their staff, make sure that they stay appropriately.
With this view, Mr. Speaker, thank you for allowing me to talk. Thank you.
Now I'll put the question. At the conclusion of the debate, the question is all in favor of the motion, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it, the motion is carried. Yes.
Speaker, we can now go on to page 11. Speaker, page 11. Page 11, and take item 16. The motion.
Yes. Item 16. Motion by Minister for Environment, Science and... Yes, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister for Environment, Science and Technology.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this Honorable House adopts the motion, approve the sum of 575,856,000 for the services of the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation for the year ending 31st December 2022. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Yes, Chairman of the Committee.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I stand to second the motion for the adoption of the report of the Committee on Environment, Science and Technology. Mr. Speaker, in seconding the motion, I'd like to present the committee's report and kindly ask the Hansa Department to capture the report as having been read in its entirety. The Speaker, moving to the observations that were made by the committee, I'd like to talk about 3 of the 5 observations that were made by the committee. The first one is related to the observation that in 2022 the budgetary estimates to the ministry stands at 574.8 million, representing 25% from the 2021 allocation. This is something commendable, but the committee continue to advocate for more allocation to the ministry because of the critical role that they play, particularly in the advancement of science and technology development in Ghana. The Speaker, the next observation that I'd like to make is captured in paragraph 8.6 on page 13 of the report, and that has to do with the funding for research and development. The Speaker, the committee indicated that the mandate of CSR across the country, coupled with its budgetary allocation, the CSR is underfunded for it to play the critical role of coordinating research and technology development. Mr. Speaker, the committee further commends the initiative the ministry is putting in place to prioritize research and development in meeting the country's commitment of allocating 1% of GDP to support the activities of the Council. The Speaker, the committee, however, observed that to clarify whether the commitment of 1% refers to GDP or national revenue. Furthermore, there is a need to compile all agencies and institutions of R&D that require public financing of their research activities in order to provide a better picture of actual government commitment to R&D. This, the committee observed, will also assist Parliament in providing oversight over public expenditure on R&D. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the committee also observed that the Environmental Protection Agency, which is solely funded by HIGF, plays an important role, and that there is a need for the EPA's presence and visibility to be improved across the country. And so the committee bemoaned the likely absence of the agency in some parts of the country and strongly recommends that some investments are made by government to enable them establish additional operational districts or zones and recruit the needed personnel to have visibility and presence across the country. Mr. Speaker, the committee has thoroughly examined the 2022 annual budget estimates and is of the view that the policies and programs outlined in the budget will support the environmental sustainability, government's industrialization agenda, and promote the needed economic growth of the country. So the committee accordingly recommends to the House to adopt this report and approve the amount of 574,856,000 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation for the year 2022. Mr. Speaker, I so submit.
Yes, Honorable Ranking Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak to the motion number 16. And in doing so, Mr. Speaker, I have some few comments. There is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that this country would have to make serious efforts in supporting science, technology, and innovation. Without that, Mr. Speaker, our quest for development would delay. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at this budget and previous budgets, there is no indication that we are towing that line. Mr. Speaker, the budget for the ministry this year, if you look at the figure, the global figure, though there has been some increase, Mr. Speaker, it is virtually for compensation. What it means is that we are paying people for no work done. Mr. Speaker, it means that there's no job satisfaction. And if you want to promote science, it's not about just paying the people to go and sit in their offices. They must do something for others to get attracted to it. This is not happening. Mr. Speaker, for instance, we as a country would want to embark on nuclear power production. We have the Nuclear Regulatory Authority that is supposed to educate. Mr. Speaker, in this budget, what we have seen is that even the previous budget that we complain a lot about has been reduced by about 8%. Mr. Speaker, this is woefully inadequate, and it will not help in their quest to educate, to regulate. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, my humble appeal once again to the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Finance, is that we need to put our money where we shall get development and therefore, create jobs for our teeming youth. Mr. Speaker, we have a problem with energy. And this time around, everybody is talking about renewable energy. The CSR and its allied institutions are doing a lot in that direction. But then, they are unable to take off because they are not getting the needed support from government. We are pleading, Mr. Speaker, that the government must make sure that we support them. There there's another dimension, Mr. Speaker. I spoke about it during the policy debate, that because of lack of funding, they are forced to go outside and source for funding for their research. A lot of the time, the donors, those who give them money, dictate what they do. But the essence of these institutions is to solve our local problems. So if we are not funding them, they will not be able to, they will not be able to solve our problems for us. Most of the research that they do not really impact directly. And that's the reason why we are not seeing what we are supposed to be seeing, happening in this institute. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot that they can do, and they are doing a lot. But then we need to support them. The minister has, come up with an initiative to create a commercial center for research and for development of technology. Commercialization of technology, Mr. Speaker, should be taken out completely from these entities, so that at least they can concentrate on their core businesses, adding knowledge, coming out with technology. Then when they come out, another sector led by government should take up the process of commercializing and utilization of these findings. Mr. Speaker, if you do that, we will get to know the relevance of this institute, and therefore put in money to support the work they do over there. Mr. Speaker, I thank you, for this opportunity. And I believe that this is the second time I'm raising this issue this year. The Minister of Finance is listening, and I'm sure he will take a cue from what I have said, so that you give them the needed support, so that our digitalization, whatever that we want to embark on, will come to fruition. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. They don't have anybody.
There's nobody on your side to contribute here? Very well, yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion. Let me mention that I got the report about 2 hours ago, and I don't think that is good enough. Yes, I got it 2 hours ago. And so what I am saying is that it is good we do the right thing. So in the future, we have to try as much as possible to let us have the report on time. We can peruse the report properly and have proper discussion.
If you're not ready, I can give it to somebody else so that you take your time and read it.
All right, so moving forward, I want to indicate that, Mr. Speaker, that science and technology definitely needs attention. Permit me to revisit the issue of 2021 allocation. In 2021, a total amount, the percentage of allocation that was given to the ministry was 97%, even in the midst of COVID. But in this particular 2021, you realize that only about 75% was released to the ministry. I think that is not good enough. In 2021, capex was around 5.5 million, and only about 1 million, approximately 20%, was released. However, in 2020, you will find that capex was almost 50 million, and up to 60% was released even in the midst of COVID. What has changed? And in 2021, we only receive about 20%. That is not good enough. We have to get serious and support science and technology. Mr. Speaker, permit me to add that it looks like the various agencies have been compelled to follow some formalities, in the sense that some of the agencies we met did indicate some capex, some IGF, internal generated fund. Then when you ask them what is their source of IGF, they cannot explain to you how they will generate the IGF. I think we have to let them understand that, we have to let the agencies understand that it is not a must to indicate or to fill the column of the IGF if they don't have anything for IGF. Mr. Speaker, there's so much pressure for me to conclude. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, let me indicate that we have to learn from COVID. We have to learn from COVID, because we realize that we didn't have adequate capacity during COVID to deal with issues. And I was that we would have learned the lesson as a country and empower science and technology and increase sufficiently capex to support their infrastructure and the development of science and technology. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I support the motion for the approval of the budget for the means. Thank you very much.
Now put a question. As many as are in favor of the motion say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it, the motion is carried. Yes.
Speaker, we cannot go on to page 10 of today's order paper and take item 9B, B for Bell. Speaker, seek your leave for it to be laid by the Deputy Minister of Finance. 9B.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think the item is the supplementary appropriation bill. Is that it? Okay.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Deputy Minister, you may.
An act to provide for the withdrawal of sums of money from the consolidated fund for supplementary appropriation to meet government expenditure from the financial year ending on the 31st of December 2021.
The bill is read the first time. It's referred to the committee to consider and report.
Speaker, page 5, and with your leave, for the Deputy Minister of Finance again, to do the laying of item 8BIII. Speaker, with your leave.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Leader. Presentation of papers. Very well. Honorable Deputy Minister. Item 8BI.
Request for waiver of import duties, import VAT, get fund levy, NHIL, and exim levy, amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of $1,065,736 United States dollars and 67 cents on raw materials, machinery, and equipment to be imported by Specialty Beers Ghana Limited under the implementation of the One District, One Factory program.
The paper is duly presented. Is referred to the Committee on Finance to consider and report. Item BII.
Request for waiver of import duties, import VAT, get fund levy, NHIL, and exim levy, amounting to the Ghana CG equivalent of 467,470 United States dollars and 91 cents on raw materials, machinery, and equipment to be imported by Prestige Integrated Agro Company Limited under the implementation of the One District, One Factory program.
The paper is duly presented. Is referred to the Committee on Finance to consider and report.
Speaker, we can finally go back to questions. Yes, questions. We ended on 377. With your leave, we can now begin with 3232.
Very well. Honorable Minister for Trade has been waiting. The Honourable Member for Bolo Bamboy will ask question number 232.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry what measures are in place to regulate the standardization of cement on the Ghanaian market. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, through the Ghana Standards Authority, is responsible for the promotion and regulation of standards in Ghana. The legal basis for the development of standards is derived from the Ghana Standards Rules 1970, the Standards Authority Act, and the Weights and Measures Act. Against this background, Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Standards Authority has specifically put in place standards for cement production in Ghana, based on which the authority certifies cement products and undertakes market surveillance activities to provide customers with assurance of the quality and content of cement production in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the 5 main standards for cement products are: 1. The standard for building and construction materials, covering the composition specification and the conformity criteria for common cement. 2. The standard for packaging, covering multi-wall paper sacks for cement. 3. The standard for methods of testing cement to determine its strength. 4. The standard for methods of testing cement to determine the chemical analysis. And last but not the least, the standard for methods of testing cement to determine certain times and soundness. Mr. Speaker, the above mentioned standards are used by GSA to regulate cement production in Ghana, as well as guide the process of conformity assessment through the process of inspection, testing, and certification. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that the GSA undertakes quarterly surveillance of the cement market in Ghana. During this exercise, samples of products from all certified companies are purchased from the open market in the various regions of the country for testing to ascertain their quality and also to check their weight. This started in the last quarter of 2019 and continues quarterly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, in the Minister's response, he listed main standards for cement products. And in the last sentence, he is talking about the fact that Ghana Standards Authority goes out there to do some weight measurements. I want to find out from him, which of the 5 standards here relates to measurement of weights? Thank you.
Did you get him? I was not clear. Can you repeat your question?
I'm saying that
the minister listed 5 main standards for cement products. And I'm talking about weight, the measurement of the cement, the weight of it. Which of these standards measures the weight of cement? That's what I'm asking to do.
Well, your question was on standards. They did refer to weight.
Yes, Speaker. Perhaps let me refrain. And with your permission, let me read here. He's talking about, Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that the Ghana Standards Authority undertakes quarterly surveillance of the cement market in Ghana. During this exercise, samples of products from all certified companies are purchased from the open market in the various regions of the country for testing and ascertaining their quality and also to check their weights. But earlier on, he had given us the standards that they use in doing this. And I want him to tell me which of these standards relates to the weighing or the taking the weight of cement.
Very well. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I made reference to the standard for methods of testing cement to determine its strength. This is the standard that relates to the question that you have posed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, your committee met with manufacturers of cement, and the complaint is that there are no standards when it comes to the weight of cement. And I have taken the pain, it's unfortunate I can't mention the various brands, to weigh cement in my constituency. And I realized that there's a shortage in terms of the 50 kilograms that we are all aware. And that is why I asked this question. Now the minister is saying that they have been weighing it. Will the minister, and for that matter, the Ghana Standards Authority, will be ready to share with us the information or the data that you get anytime you undertake this exercise, so that consumers will know that these are the ones that meet the 50 kilograms that we are all aware of. Are you ready to share that with us? And when can we get that information?
Yes.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. The GSA will be ready to share that information with the committee.
Yes.
I humbly ask when we can get that information. If you can.
He says we'll share with your committee on trade, I guess.
Thank you.
Very well. I'll proceed to the next question. It's in the name of the Honorable Member for Busa South, Dr. Clementa Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry when the One District, One Factory project in Fumbisi in the Busa South District will be commissioned and the number of people it is expected to employ.
Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, the establishment of the rice processing facility under the 1D1F initiative in the Busa South District is ongoing, with civil works at 88% completion. The procurement process for the supply and installation of the processing equipment, which is currently underway, was delayed due to the disruption in global supply chains arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, it is envisaged that the installation and commissioning of the rice processing facility will be completed by June 2022. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that the Fumbisi 1D1F project is one of the innovative youth-owned 1D1F companies. The factory is expected to create about 240 direct and indirect employment opportunities for the youth in the Fumbisi and adjoining communities. These will include management staff, outgrowers, seed and input suppliers, transporters, and distributors. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the minister made references to innovative. I guess when the project is finished, we will be able to speak to that. Mr. Speaker, could the minister share with us the cost of the rice processing plant, which is currently about 88% complete?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, regrettably, the question did not specify that information. I'm in a position to provide that to the honorable member in due course. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once the minister has indicated that he will make the information available, I expect him to deliver on that pledge. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, can the minister tell the House the capacity of the facility in terms of the quantity of rice it is expected to produce per day when completed?
Yes, Honorable Minister, do you have that information readily available? I was asking whether I have. It says the capacity of the factory in terms of the quantity of rice it can mill a day when completed.
Mr. Speaker, I'll provide that information to the honorable member in due course. Thank you.
Okay. Very well. We'll move on to the next one. The honorable member for Tamale Central, Mutala Mohammed Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industries how much the state spent in the importation of rice and other foodstuffs into this country between 2017 to 2020.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Ghana spent an estimated total of 6.874 billion Ghana cedis on the importation of rice from 2017 to 2020. In addition, Mr. Speaker, Ghana also imported the following food products over the same period: fish, an amount of 3.9 million, processed chicken, an amount of 1.881 million, meat, 487 million, vegetables, 281 million, and then poultry in the form of birds, 184 million. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to find out from the Minister, based on the answers given, whether he agrees with me that we're spending close to $1 billion each year in the importation of these food items.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the honorable member is right in terms of the arithmetic that I provided. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to find out from the Honorable Minister that there was a policy at the Ministry of Trade which restricted the importation of rice into this country by small rice importers. Has that ban been lifted? If it has, what has been the justification for the lifting of that ban? And as to whether that has an impact on the amount of money we spend on such food items?
Yes, no.
Mr. Speaker, rice is a very common staple food in our country, and one has to maintain a very delicate balance between the quantity of rice that is produced locally at any given point in time and what is imported to ensure that there are no serious shortages. In that respect, we continue to monitor the production of rice locally with all the support that is provided by my ministry and by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And at the appropriate time, when the volumes of locally produced rice increases significantly, we'll be able to restrict, maybe not necessarily, but restrict the importation of rice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, my question was not answered, unfortunately.
I have given you an answer. If you have one more opportunity, can you?
Yes, I asked a specific question, whether the ban imposing a restriction in the importation of rice into this country by small rice importers have been lifted. And if it has, what has been the justification for such, considering the fact that we spend over $1 billion each year, or almost $1 billion each year, by the figures you provided in importation of such food items?
Is there any such legal ban on importation by small importers of rice?
Right, Honorable Speaker, we have not as yet lifted the ban on the importation of rice. We have a management policy, as I indicated in my answer, to ensure there are no shortages in the system. So as and when there's evidence of significant levels of local production, we'll be able to determine at that point, in respect of the ban, what decision to take.
You're done. Sorry.
Mr. Speaker.
You're done.
For the avoidance of doubt.
No, please.
I would want the answer to be repeated. Whether the...
You're done, please. Kindly take your seat. Question number 408, but I remember for Whole Central.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Minister for Trade and Industry how much the ministry has realized from the imposition of fees for processing and issuance of license to import Portland cement from 2017 to 2020 in respect of the following. 1. Bulk cement at the rate of 175 pesos of FOB free on board value per metric ton, and 2. Bag cement at the rate of 35 pesos of free on board value per metric ton.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the export and import restrictions on importation of Portland cement regulations, LI 2240, became effective on the 28th of June 2016. The LI makes provision for the levying of fees for import licenses for Portland cement. The ministry received in April 2017 and August 2017 a total amount of 225,075 cedis from 2 companies for bag cement imported into the country. The ministry has not levied or received any fees on Portland cement imported into the country since August 2017. Mr. Speaker, this year, the ministry has submitted through the Ministry of Finance proposals for consideration and approval to amend the Fees and Charges Act in respect of fees for imported bulk and bag cement. Thank you, Mr.
Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to know from the minister the basis for collecting the fees and the licenses, because I have LI 2240 here and I cannot find the levies. I have it in my hand.
Yes, Honorable Minister. Can you repeat the question? He says, what is the basis for the charges? Because he does not see those charges in the Fees and Levies Act. Is that right? The Fees and Levies Regulation.
Yeah, you have repeated my question.
You wanted that, and I'm just repeating it for you. Yes, and obviously, did you get?
Mr. Speaker, there is an import management committee that has been established in the Ministry of Trade and Industry for many years, and the committee takes decisions in respect of these matters. So it was a decision of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
So, Mr. Speaker, does it mean that these fees are not publicized because the LI does not state the fees? And I combed through the big book, fees and charges. I couldn't find the rate indicated in the big book as well. What I saw was one for laboratory testing. That's the only thing I saw over there. So does it mean that when the committee determines the charges and the fees, they do not publish it? It's left with them only.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the fees and charges that were determined by the committee at that time were publicly circulated, and it's against this background that we have submitted through the Ministry of Finance proposals for the consideration to amend the Fees and Charges Act in respect of fees for imported bulk and bag cement, so that it can be regularized. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Your last one.
Mr. Speaker, the minister says that he only collected these fees in 2017, April and August respectively. But I have here the 2022 financial year budget presented by the Minister for Finance, including the tables. And, Mr. Speaker, on page 300 of the tables presented by the Minister for Finance, it is indicated that there was a projection of funds from that source collected or to be collected amounting to 14,930,000, and as at September 2021, total collection amounted to 3,473,000, with a lodgement of 1,632,000 and retained 53%, 1,841,000. If the minister can
with what he has provided in the answer to the question.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the statement made by the honorable member, you were making reference to a projection. I do not have the document before me. You made reference to a projection. And you also made reference to collections that were made. This was published by the Ministry of Finance. We need to reference that same material that you have and then make sure that it reconciles with the figures that we have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The next one is by Dr. Kinsley Nyaku, Honorable Member for Fathers. Question 411.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry the current number of completed factories built under the 1D, 1F program of government and the estimated number of jobs created. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, to date, there are 278 1D, 1F projects at various stages of implementation. Out of this number, 106 companies are currently in operation, 148 are under construction, and 24 at the mobilization stage under the 1D, 1F initiative. Mr. Speaker, 165 out of the 270 companies are new companies or new projects, representing 60%, while they are existing companies representing 40%. The 106 companies that are currently operational have created a total of 153,782 direct and indirect jobs, up from 139,331 in December 2020. Mr. Speaker, it is expected that when the additional 148 projects currently under construction are completed, the cumulative number of direct and indirect jobs created will increase to 288,599. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Honorable Speaker, I'm grateful to the Minister for the answer provided. However, I also want to find out from him how the 1D, 1F policy is going to cash in on the Youth Start program captured in the budget. Thank you.
What program? Is that how cash in on what program?
What about the 1D, 1F policy? How is it going to contribute to the Youth Start program captured in the budget?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the 1D, 1F program could contribute significantly to the implementation of the Youth Start program using the innovative model of youth-owned 1D, 1F enterprises that I was referring to in respect of the project in Fumbisi. That's one entry point for the to become involved in mainstream industrial activity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful. Thank you.
The next question is in the name of the Honourable Member for Finsu South, Dr. Ezekiel Opoku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry if there are any arrangements in place to ensure that Ofenso municipality benefit from the government's flagship program of one district, one factory. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the One District, One Factory program is a demand-driven initiative which is facilitated by government to assist the private sector to establish at least one manufacturing enterprise in each of the 260 districts of the country. Mr. Speaker, to date, no private sector promoter has confirmed their interest in establishing a 1D1F project in the Ofinsu municipality. However, Mr. Speaker, government's policy is to support such districts with seed capital to establish their own 1D1F companies. Mr. Speaker, provision has been made in the 2022 budget to support 16 districts that are currently without 1D1F projects because there are no business promoters. And this will enable them to benefit from the direct intervention by government in their own projects. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, pending the approval of the 2022 estimates, the Ministry will consider providing seed funding to establish a 1D1F project in the Ofinsu municipality with a view of offloading government's shares or interest to a private sector operator in future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very satisfied with the Minister's response. Mr. Speaker, indeed, yesterday the issue came up at your meeting for discussion, and the Minister adequately addressed the issue. So I'm very satisfied and most grateful for the opportunity.
Very well, thank you. The last question is in the name of the Honourable Member from Prayasu, David Ansa Opoku.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask the Minister for Trade and Industry what plans the Ministry has put in place to ensure that the private sector in Ghana harnesses the benefits from the AFTA agreement. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, trading under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement commenced officially on the 1st of January 2021, and Ghana was the first country in Africa to establish their customs procedure codes to facilitate trading under the AFCFTA. Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the private sector in Ghana harnesses the benefits of the AFTA agreement, a national AFCFTA coordinating office has been established to coordinate the implementation of the AFCFTA in collaboration with other relevant stakeholders. More importantly, Mr. Speaker, a comprehensive national policy and action plan for AFCFTA has been developed and is currently being operationalized. This includes an enterprise support component designed to identify and assist companies in Ghana to directly target specific AFCFTA market destinations and to export to those markets. So far, Mr. Speaker, about 200 companies have been selected, and the Ministry is currently undertaking enterprise-level audits to determine the specific types of support needed by these companies to enable them produce and enter and compete in the continental market. Mr. Speaker, to facilitate trading under AFCFTA, the Ghana Revenue Authority has been designated as a competent authority for issuing certificates of origin to cover exports under AFCFTA. In addition to the above, Mr. Speaker, to ensure optimal participation by the private sector, the National AFCFTA Office has undertaken several consultations with stakeholders, with both private sector and key public sector agencies that have important roles to play to facilitate the effective participation of the Ghanaian private sector in the AFCFTA trade. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm satisfied with the answers provided by the Minister. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Deputy Whip. Yes.
I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important question, and I commend the colleague who asked the question. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister talked about an enterprise support component. I would want to respectfully ask the Honourable Minister to throw some more light on this enterprise support component. Does it come with some financing? Is there some financial component, like a venture capital of a sort, to support young startups who may need some assistance from your ministry? So please, just to throw light on the enterprise support component, so that as members of parliament we can also talk to businesses in our constituencies to take advantage of this component. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the enterprise support program includes a variety of business development services, ranging from capacity building training to support in identifying markets, helping them also to improve on their production capacity and productivity, assisting them also to access financing, which may include venture capital financing, and also helping them to identify the appropriate machinery and equipment that will be suitable for their own production processes. But, Mr. Speaker, it's worth noting, I indicated that in my response, that every potential company that wants to export under the FCFTA has to go through an enterprise level audit. So it is the audit that will determine the specific type of support that is required by each company. And that is the type of support that will be provided on a case-by-case basis to the enterprises. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honourable Minister, thank you for attending upon the House to answer questions. You're discharged. That brings us to the end of question time for today. Yes, Honourable Deputy Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think a lot has been done today, and we are in your hands for adjournment as members are getting ready and preparing for the Speaker 9 lessons and carol night. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today is the festival of 9 lessons and carols night, which we usually have in December, getting to Christmas. So, Mr. Speaker, we can adjourn. We're in your hands for members to prepare for the festival.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, even though we are in your hands, but if we could adjourn to tomorrow, 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Is that the agreement? Is that the agreement that we start at 2 p.m. tomorrow?
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I think that was the communication. 2 p.m. because majority of the committees need to get their report ready. So by 10 a.m. if we sit, many of the reports wouldn't be ready by then. So 2 p.m. will be ample time for us to get committees to get their report ready so that we'll be able to take it.
Very well. The House is accordingly adjourned to tomorrow, Thursday, the 16th of December, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.